The night sky over Kharkiv still glows with the fading orange of burning rooftops, a harsh reminder of yet another attack on a city that has already endured years of unrelenting bombardment. As firefighters move through the debris, their silhouettes flicker against the flames, each step measured, deliberate, and defined by urgency. They work tirelessly, battling the blaze that still breathes through the shattered remains of residential buildings struck just hours ago. Their movements are focused, almost rhythmic, as if they have rehearsed this tragedy far too many times before. The camera captures one firefighter pushing through smouldering rubble, the smoke curling around his helmet, the glow of fire reflecting off his visor. The crackling of burning wood and twisted metal forms the night's only soundtrack, broken only by the sharp commands exchanged between rescue workers across the site. A wider shot reveals the scale of the destruction. Charred frameworks where homes once stood, pieces of civilian life strewn across the ground, and the rhythmic pulses of emergency lights casting streaks of blue and red against the ruins. The voice of a local woman trembles in the background as she speaks to journalists. She gestures toward what remains of her home. Her words are swallowed by the noise of water cannons as firefighters try to suffocate the flames, devouring a collapsed vehicle. The metal hisses as cold water meets scorching heat, sending clouds of steam upward like ghostly apparitions rising from the ground. The camera shifts again, showing the skeletal outline of a car so thoroughly burned it barely resembles a vehicle. Firefighters, their jackets soaked and glistening, strike down the last pockets of fire hiding beneath the hood. Each movement sends sparks scattering across the ground, mixing with shattered glass and fragments of brick. In the distance, another firefighter works silently, the glow of the flames illuminating the determination etched across his face. He is exhausted, but he does not stop. Not tonight, not when lives are at stake and the threat of secondary explosions is still real. The vehicle's frame collapses inward as the fire finally dies, leaving only a blackened shell where a family's journey once began or ended. The camera pans slowly across the wreckage, tires melted into the pavement, door panels warped like sheets of paper. This is the cost of the attack that local authorities say injured at least 32 people, including 2 children aged 9 and 13. The emergency workers know those numbers intimately. They have carried many of the wounded themselves, rushing them toward ambulances that raced through the smoke-filled streets earlier in the night. Beyond the cars, the camera captures a pan of the scene. Wrecked vehicles stacked like shadows, buildings stripped down to bare skeletons, street lamps bent under the force of the blast. The ground is littered with debris that once formed the everyday world of Kharkiv's civilians. Pieces of clothing, notebooks, toys, shoes, and fragments of furniture lie scattered, distorted by heat and pressure. For residents, these items are reminders of lives interrupted, memories now fused with ash. As the camera continues its sweep, a firefighter pauses and looks toward the rising smoke as though searching for something or someone still trapped beneath the ruins. The urgency in his posture reflects the relentless pace of this war. Kharkiv has been hit for the 3rd consecutive night. Drone strikes, missile barrages, and targeted assaults have become almost routine, and yet each attack tears open new wounds in a city already fighting simply to remain alive. The voiceover deepens as the scene transitions to rescuers organizing equipment, stretchers, hydraulic cutters, medical bags. Their hands move quickly despite the cold, despite the fatigue etched into their bodies. For them, the night is not over. It rarely is. Reporters at the scene describe how rescue teams have been navigating collapsed hallways and unstable structures, searching for survivors while bracing for possible additional strikes. The tension is visible in every face, every hurried step, every glance toward the sky. A woman nearby wipes soot from her face, her hands trembling, her eyes fixed on the wreckage of what was once her home. She speaks softly to a journalist, her voice cracking as she describes the sound of the first explosion, how it shook the windows, how the walls buckled, how she grabbed her children and ran into the hallway before the second strike hit. Her story is one of hundreds repeated throughout Kharkiv this week. The firefighters continue extinguishing hotspots hidden deep within piles of debris. Steam forms thick clouds around them, swirling into the cold night air. The camera captures this close-up, faces streaked with soot, breaths visible in the winter air, hands steady despite exhaustion. Their boots sink into mud formed by firefighting water mixing with ash. Each movement is careful, cautious. The ground beneath them is unstable, littered with remnants of structures that no longer stand. In another part of the scene, a rescue worker discovers a damaged residential doorway, partially collapsed, leading into darkness. He shines a flashlight inside, calling out to check if anyone remains trapped. His voice echoes off the broken walls, answered only by silence. The light reveals a staircase bent at an impossible angle, several steps missing entirely. Yet he enters carefully, knowing that people have survived in spaces even more fragile. Outside, the firefighting team works to cool the remains of a destroyed vehicle, directing streams of water into the exposed engine block. The violent hiss of steam drowns out all other sounds for several seconds, symbolizing the constant firefight between destruction and the desperate push to preserve what little remains. The rhythm of their work continues: water, steam, silence, water, steam, collapse. As dawn begins to sneak across the skyline, the smoke lightens from black to grey. The dim blue of early morning begins to replace the deep red reflections of flame. The voices of rescue workers grow clearer as the air settles, but with the light comes the full visible weight of the destruction. Buildings appear hollowed out, rooms exposed, walls missing, pipes dangling, windows shattered. It is a portrait of devastation, but also a portrait of resilience, because through it all, the people of Kharkiv continue to endure. Children injured in the attack have already been taken to medical facilities. Local authorities confirm that the youngest victims, just 9 and 13 years old, suffered injuries from debris and collapsing structures. Doctors say that their conditions are stable, but emotionally, the scars of such an experience will take far longer to heal. Nurses and emergency responders have been working without pause, tending to burns, fractures and shock. The hospitals that remain operational are stretched to their limits. The voiceover continues to describe how this attack fits into the broader picture. Russia's near-daily use of missiles and drones across Ukrainian cities, particularly in the east. Kharkiv, located close to the border, is no stranger to relentless bombardment. Still, each new strike serves as another reminder of how fragile life remains here. Officials report that these nightly attacks are designed to wear down the city's infrastructure, to sow fear, and to test the endurance of both civilians and emergency workers. Back at the scene, the camera highlights a large crater carved into the street, now filled with muddy water and scattered debris. The blast wave peeled asphalt from the ground, leaving jagged edges. Firefighters step around it, careful to avoid hidden hazards. The crater is deep, a physical signature of the destructive power unleashed during the night. Standing near the wreckage, a volunteer in reflective gear distributes blankets and water bottles to residents who have gathered, some in shock, others assisting in the cleanup. These civilians, bundled in heavy coats, talk quietly among themselves, sharing their experiences of the night. Some describe the sound of drones overhead, the sirens that followed, the explosions that shattered the stillness just before midnight. The voiceover shifts in tone, reflecting the resilience, fear and anger mingled in the hearts of Kharkiv's residents. This is a city that refuses to surrender, even as destruction continues to rain down upon it. The people here have learned to live with uncertainty, to adapt to the constant threat, to rebuild whatever can still be rebuilt. As the camera pans once more across the wrecked vehicles, twisted metal, shattered windshields, melted bumpers, it captures a final tableau of what the night has left behind. Smoke rises in thin trails, blending into the pale morning air. Firefighters pack their equipment, exhausted but ready to respond again at any moment. Journalists gather their notes, preparing to relay the story to a world watching from afar. And civilians linger, staring at the ruins of their street, knowing that tomorrow may bring another night like this one. The voiceover closes with a reflective pause, acknowledging the enduring courage of the rescue teams who stand between destruction and the faint hope of survival, and the civilians of Kharkiv who awaken each day determined to continue living despite the war that shadows their city. The attack injured dozens, scarred families, and marked yet another dark chapter in the ongoing assault on Ukraine's eastern regions.
quite a lot.